hair is glowing in the sun. Your hand in mine, so only bound. It's bright outside and bright inside. Mid-afternoon, minister. We're free to wander anywhere. No more hatred in the stairs. Everyone's busy, mine's the world, so it's just me and you.
Hello, my free-minded brothers and sisters. Nice to find you again. It's Thursday afternoon, a sunny afternoon and chilly in Philadelphia. Hope you're staying warm and safe all over the world, wherever you're listening. Today, we are going to touch up on politicians and their lies that they tell in order to be reelected. Um, Nancy Pelosi is coming up for re-election, so she made this beautiful promo that I saw last night, and I thought that I would comment on it. You might want to prepare the barf bags if you're not used to adulterated, um, kind of sickening schmooziness of an inveterated, very expert politician that has been there, riding along, being reelected, gleaning millions of dollars in insider trading, and capitalizing on her former original, I would say, good intentions and activism or her stays in in politics. After which she progressively became more and more corrupt to the point of being the fossil that is impeding any change, any real change, making sure that nothing fundamentally changes, as Joe Biden clearly stated in his campaign at the top level. Nancy Pelosi is a corrupt politician. She legislates and then benefits from her legislation with insider trading. She has been stalling any progressive agenda. She's made sure to basically castrate and in kind of block any effort from the progressive Democrats like AOC, Ilhan Omar, the Squad, Rokana, and whatever, to ever reach any momentum for real change. She's been a stooge for the corporations. She's enabled every possible war. She has always voted for any war. She's currently lobbying hard to bypass all sorts of slowdowns and pass this very reactionary legislation in order to unleash even more sanctions and even more warmongering against Russia, funneling hundreds of millions of dollars for their, you know, for the oligarchs of the military and the military-industrial complex, pretty much defrauding the United States and the American taxpayers of really necessary money to face the inflation that is devastating the country and is going to probably send millions of people in poverty. While any meaningful legislation to help the struggling Americans in this dark period has been stalled by Manchin or whatever. Any excuse is good, even when you have the supermajority not to pass anything. It seems that like the billions of dollars necessary for upping the budget of the Pentagon and squandering everywhere else are always readily available, and this legislation gets passed within days, weeks at the most. Everything else is always stalled. But before we careen into considerations, let's watch this sickening example. I'll be stopping it and commenting as we go along. Here it is.
Hello, it's Nancy. Thank you for the opportunity to share some thoughts with you, our VIPs, our volunteers in politics, in our ongoing engagement for the people. Thank you for being a constant source of new, fresh ideas and political activism to help Democrats deliver and to defend democracy.
Okay, this is like, as the header says, politicians are pro-liars. She has already introduced three concepts that are completely devoid of any foundation and heavy fundament. the Democratic Party is for the people. It isn't for the people at all. And what was the other thing? The other two, I already forgot them. Oh yeah, um, activism to help Democrats deliver. So deliver is like in this game, like it's very important to understand that in this psychological game, there's ways where psychology is used in a dark way, and in dark psychology, you in order to perpetuate lies, you have to repeat the opposite of what is real, and then kind of use, if you do something wrong, blame it on the opponent in order to shift the blame, in order to shift the dialogue to the opposition, and then steer it away from you. So the three cardinal points: for the people, to deliver, and defend democracy. So these points are like absolutely disconnected from reality. You just need to take a look at this woman. She's 81. She's been there forever. She hasn't accomplished anything. She doesn't have anything to say that she really accomplished. And now she's going to go on and tell you everything that she accomplished and everything that she stood for, not mention even remotely all the things that she actually managed to accomplish. And then she talks about delivering. One of the disastrous results of this administration in the first year, after everybody had their hopes up, with a swift change from the direction that Trump was going, was to actually legislate in favor of the people and pass a lot of legislation that was aimed to help them during this period, but in a general sense, which was um, working towards universal health care, passing $15 minimum wage, student debt relief, lowering drug prices that are twice as much or much higher than any other industrialized nation in the world, and a bunch of other the environment, infrastructure, blah blah blah, pity pim pity pam. So she puts, because delivering is what they haven't done, she says that they deliver, help the Democrats deliver. And then it says, she frames it this way: the activists have to bring fresh new ideas and content in order to deliver, in order to allow the Democratic Party to deliver. So this is like, it's ridiculous because the activists cannot do really anything, because when it gets to the legislative level, she stops anything. She and all her cronies stop any form of development. So she gives the impression that they're there to enable the fresh wind that comes out of the activists, but this is a blatant lie. And then defend democracy is very sketchy concept, because really there is nothing to defend. The legislators rule in the name of the oligarchy, not for the people and not for democracy. That's for sure. So let's keep going and see where she takes this delirium.
To deliver and to defend democracy. Thank you for giving me the privilege to represent our city and our San Francisco values in the Congress.
Okay, San Francisco values is another concept that is pretty ridiculous, because what are San Francisco values? She's referring and pandering to people that are in her age range that remember San Francisco when it was peace and love and whatever, and then activism and political innovation, political protests and everything. That San Francisco doesn't exist anymore. I lived in San Francisco from 2006 to 2009. San Francisco was the shadow of itself at that time. Now I go back regularly. It's a joke. San Francisco is the representation of the oligarchy, where mega structures and people raking in incredibly obscene amount of money live in their own superior areas, where the lower strata, where the everybody else has to contend for life. So most of my friends are not able to afford living in San Francisco and moved somewhere else. There is homelessness has become a disastrous reality in all of California. There's incredible racial inequality and economic inequality, and then the values that she's referring to do not exist, and she's not bringing. Actually, she is bringing San Francisco's value in Congress, which is rapacious oligarchy, in extreme income inequality, and then homelessness and everything else. It is spreading wildly across the country. So yeah, she does. Sorry, I stand corrected. She does bring San Francisco values to Congress.
Human rights, reproductive justice, LGBTQ equality, respect for immigrants, and care for each other.
Okay, this again. Let me replay it again because it's such a joke that it needs to be repeated and hear it over and over and over. She says human rights, there are none. People are living in tents on the underpasses, and then in camper trailers. People can afford, people that work in the tech industry, also some of those cannot afford living in the super expensive Mountain View, San Francisco, and Cupertino, whatever, you name it. So no human rights, reproductive justice, whatever that means, LGBTQ equality. That is it's a very easy thing to pander to because it doesn't cost anything, and it's a political agenda, but doesn't have any real um, consequences in terms of like the average working class person or the average middle class person for that matter. While protection of everybody's rights are a sacrosanct right, this doesn't actually cost anything politically. That she doesn't need to stick her neck out for anything. This is just a fluff. And then respect for immigrants. Really, respect for immigrants? In what way? There is no respect for immigrants. This is like we're suffering one of the worst immigrant crises ever done. They never legislated. They never recognized immigrants' rights. They never legalized immigrants that have been working in the United States for decades and still are not citizens, despite the fact that they pay taxes and other realities. In California, it's the main example of enormous economic entities that hire illegal immigrants and get away with it. And then these illegal immigrants live in a constant state of terror because they can be deported by the millions. Or they can be deported overnight. They can be separated from their children. They live in a state of terror. And then Obama first, Trump second, and Biden, they keep deporting them at record speed. So, like, I don't know what she's talking about.
Equality, respect for immigrants, and care for each other.
And care for each other. Yeah, care for each other is like the one that I like the most. It's a beautiful Disney world. Everybody loves each other. There is no inequality. Their values have been. You go to San Francisco and then see what she's talking about.
When people ask me what are the three most important issues facing the Congress, I always say the same thing. Our children, our children, our children. Their health, their education. The same thing. Our children, our children, our children. The same thing. Our children, our children, our children. Their health, their education.
So, what are the issues, the three most important issues that Congress faces? The children, the children, the children. That doesn't mean anything. She's pandering again to 80 years old that have grandchildren, but she's actually doing nothing for the children. It's like nothing for the immigrant children that are being deported and separated from their parents still, even though nobody talks about it anymore. She does nothing for the children in the United States. She has done nothing because the education in the United States is a disaster. It's a privilege-based caste system that is like a sore in the eye of like humanity. The United States ranks 40th in the world. So and now she's gonna go on and say all the things that they've done, incredible things that they've done for the children. Here it is.
Their health, their education, the housing and economic
Security. So health. Let's just look at this thing because it's like it's barf wise. So health is what they health is like in the United States again we rank I don't know where in terms of health. Children have like that are obese at an incredible level. The mortality, infant mortality is the highest of any industrialized nation. And then food is mostly poison unless you have that much money that you have, and then conscientious parents that allow you to grow up eating decent things. Most of the children are fed with like tainted, genetically modified foods that severely imperil their health. So I would say health, no. Education, again, ranking terribly. I don't know. I don't have the number. We can look it up, but it's like the U.S. is like free falling in the charts for education standards. Housing, again, crisis. People getting evicted left and right. Millions of people living under the poverty line. Their children are gonna experience the same thing. So I wouldn't say that they've done any economic. Let's not even touch on that. And then
Healthy
what
and
was the other
economic
thing?
security of their families,
Economic
a clean,
security.
safe environment in which they can thrive, and a world at peace and where they are all welcome. And
Okay, so again, in an environment where they can thrive, I don't know how they would thrive in this environment, and a world at peace in which they can reach their fulfillment. And so this is a person that has legislated in favor of initiating any war of the past 20, 30 years. So like a person like that is talking about world peace is a obscenity. Uh, Nancy Pelosi is always voting for war. She has voted along with wars that have killed millions of people. And then she's here like pontificating about world peace and stuff.
in which they can reach their fulfillment. That is my why I am in Congress for the
For
children.
the children.
This is my story and this is my song. As you hear me say, when you're in the arena,
This is
you have
precious.
to be able to take a punch or throw a punch for the children.
Okay, so if it is not psychotic, I don't know what it is. When you are in the arena, and her arena is where she's a super powerful member of Congress. She's protected, financed, and then sheltered by her privilege, her age, the corporations that are behind there. And then she's here portraying her as a fighter in the arena that, like, takes a punch and gives a punch for the children. I've never taken a punch or given a punch for the children. That's already deranged in its own words. So this is the complete disconnect and the derangement of a class of old geezers that have stayed there, overstayed their welcome, and they are just kept there because they're reliable stooges for the corporations. They will never rule in your favor. They will never help you. They're there to block any legislation that actually benefits the working class and the middle class, and they're there because they're put there by their overlords, and they rule in favor of the overlords all the time. So this is like her description of herself in the arena, with this kind of like grandma, I'm gonna fight for my children kind of things. I do not know how people can take this sickening rhetoric and not be disgusted and not decide that not to vote for this person. So let's keep going because it gets better.
In terms of health, my first words on the floor of the House were to fight against HIV/AIDS, to fight the disease and discrimination.
Okay, so that's how she started. And she did, in all honesty, kind of advocated for the rights of people that have AIDS and to, avoid their discrimination. Let's not forget that she was there when Fauci was doing what he's doing now, which is basically stalling anything to wait for his corporate friends from the big pharma to come up with cures that never materialize. So it's nice that she quotes that. And the only thing that I think she can quote 40 years after, the AIDS epidemic was at the beginning of the 80s, so that was 40 years ago. Anthony Fauci got into power in 1984. He's been there for 40 years straight. She probably fought as an activist against the discrimination of people that had AIDS. 40 years later, there still isn't a cure for AIDS. And then people that have HIV have been turned into, persons that need constant cure. The cure has never been found. So 40 years later, she cannot really claim any sort of fight the disease. That's the thing. Their thing is to fight the disease, not to cure the disease. It's to fight it. Like many other things, we want to fight it and keep finding medications that don't cure the disease, but actually allow people to coexist with the disease and become dependent on medications and stuff. Not to forget that Fauci himself was if you ever watch Dallas Buyers Club. Uh, Fauci was the evil guy in the movie that prevented people from trying medications that might help them, and stunted any form of experimental treatments, and stole them until the very end. It was a bitter fight, and he was sued all over. And then eventually, he almost lost his job, and ended up not losing his job for some reason. Like he's not losing his job right now, where he's overseeing the worst massacre of Americans over the past 2 years. He was under Trump and he was under Biden. Under Biden, as many people died under Biden in the 1 year under Biden as they died in under Trump. But nobody talks about this, despite the fact that the vaccines have been introduced, and in the meantime, we're like just scapegoating the unvaccinated. So if like in a moment when everybody was unvaccinated, everybody, we had a certain number of deaths, and then the vaccines got introduced, and we have the same amounts of deaths in the following year with the vaccine and everything, I don't know that can be blamed on the unvaccinated. So let's keep going.
Working together, we passed the Affordable Care Act, strengthening Social Security, Medicare.
Listen how she goes, she blasts through all these things like her accomplishment. They passed the Affordable Care Act, which is basically a gift to the private companies. It's not universal healthcare or state healthcare like we have in Europe. Like in Europe, it's a combination. Everybody has universal healthcare, and then people can also buy into private healthcare if they make a certain amount of money that puts them out of the difficult spot in life. In this country, there isn't 100 million uninsured, underinsured, 80 million uninsured. So this is their accomplishment. A third of the country is underinsured or uninsured altogether. And the figures have not been adjusted after COVID, after all disaster of COVID. And then strengthened Social Security. I don't know how. Medicare and Medicaid. Yes, she's pandering to the older people that have Medicare and Medicaid. She stunted every attempt to put the legislation on the floor, the vote on the floor for Medicare for all, which would be an expansion of Medicare to include every citizen. And again, the discussion regarding Medicare is pretty ridiculous because it's almost like, oh, if I get the state thing, it's going to be so bad, the government can run anything, blah, 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 blah. A civilized nation has healthcare. The US is not a civilized nation. A civilized nation provides all its citizens with free access to healthcare. Then, if people want extra and have the money to do so, they're very welcome to go private. If they want to be relying on private, schemes and stuff, or what the private companies for profit that provide you healthcare for profit, they're very welcome to do so. But there's gotta be a safety net for the largest population that doesn't have access to expensive premiums, and I would attest subpar healthcare, even though it paid a top price. Medicaid is the same thing.
Medicaid, lower prescription drug prices.
Okay, this lower prescription drug prices, another myth. This administration didn't deliver on, whereas we're talking about delivering. So we pay the highest price of an industrialized nation for prescription medication, probably from and most of the nations, because in other nations it might be even cheaper. But even if they're not industrialized or at the top, what they actually passed, they passed 10 medications, 10 that will be capped. Their price will be capped. That's all they were able to pass, 10 out of the hundreds of thousands of medications that are available. So she's taunting something that doesn't even exist. It was a joke, and it's not even gonna kick in until, I don't know, 2028 or something like that. It's completely crazy. And now we're fighting COVID.
And now are fighting COVID with equity.
With equity. They're fighting COVID with equity. I don't know what that even means. With equity. Because before we were fighting COVID with disequity, I guess. And then she goes on, it's beautiful how she passes through this litany of lies. And then She just keeps moving, like, bring it on. What's next?
In San Francisco, the climate is not an issue, it is an ethic. Education, the economy, and the environment are all part of how we address the climate crisis, creating good-paying green union jobs, affordable housing, clean energy, infrastructure, transportation justice, and education.
Okay, so all these, like, you didn't deliver on any of these promises. None. Let's look at them again. This is like flabbergasting. Creating good paying green union jobs. Okay, union busting everywhere. There's no unions anywhere. Green jobs, whatever that means. So we're gonna, again, this is code words for, like, we're gonna squash down what is there without providing alternatives, or providing alternatives that are gonna devastate communities that cannot access those alternatives.
Jobs, affordable housing, clean energy, infrastructure.
Affordable housing, again, another myth. There's no affordable houses. House prices are skyrocketing in Philadelphia, are skyrocketing on the regular. Philadelphia was a very, very depressed city until the early 2000s, and then found a renaissance. And then with the renaissance came gentrification and rise in spikes in prices and rents. I don't know what she's talking about. And Philadelphia is still very affordable compared to other cities that are completely untouchable. Clean energy, whatever that means, they're fracking the hell out of the world. Biden is the fracking master, and then we're trying to frack and produce as much gas to counteract Russia in Europe. So it means that the prices of what we drill is so cheap that we can be competitive to a certain degree with Russia in Europe. So the fracking is a devastation. All the other things that are trying to do, they're drilling everywhere. Biden authorized drilling in state parks or government land. Infrastructure, the bill didn't pass.
Transportation justice and education.
Transportation justice. What does that even mean? Means it makes transportation affordable to everybody? That's not true. Transportation is super expensive and it keeps going up. Justice? Like, in what way? Like, there's a transportation injustice? Like, I mean, what does that even mean? These are all empty words that, like, they get passed around in this, like, a feel-good tone. Yeah, she delivers. And that's pretty much the only thing that she can deliver. And education? Again, we already touched on education.
Educating the next generation to succeed in safe schools with 21st century skills.
Yeah, succeed in safe schools. I don't know if she's talking about the lockdowns and not allowing children to go to school, which has been devastating, has not been replicated pretty much anywhere else except for psycho nations like New Zealand and England to a certain degree. All the other nations through the pandemic, starting September 2020, they were all back in school. Here, we went back to school in May 2021, at least in Philadelphia. So, like, and then succeed in safe schools. Schools in Philadelphia are a mess. They've been, like, sold out by Superintendent Height, who sold out 40 or 60 schools to the lowest bidder, forcing kids, like, to crowd even more overcrowded schools. And then with 21st century skills, whatever that means.
Our safe communities require gun violence prevention, addressing the root causes of crime, and supporting law enforcement.
Look at this. This is a problem. So, like, crime prevention, addressing the root causes of crime. Crime has skyrocketed. In Philadelphia, again, 2021, we had the highest record number of homicides. And then there's widespread mess. In every superstore, everything is locked down. In Home Depot, where I shop regularly, everything is locked out. And then you can't access anything unless an employee takes it for you and brings it to the register and keeps it there until you check out. So crime is spreading, and then violence is at all times high. Nobody has done anything to address the root cause of violence in underprivileged neighborhoods. Actually, it seems like nobody really really does care about anything like that. And there's everything has been completely ignored and left, a few voices to scream for change that never materializes. And supporting law enforcement.
with justice in policing.
Justice in policing. Okay, so we have justice in transportation and justice in policing. Wow. Whatever that means. You see how the language has become like, the Democratic Party had this like streak of like defund the police. Then they saw the disaster. So now before the election, they're actually trying to recuperate their appeal to with the people that believe in police, etc. So like a justice in policing. That's this is all like empty words. These are just this person trying to save her ass. I don't know, actually, I don't know, trying to cling on to her power. And most of all, her overlords wanting her there because she's a proven stooge that can deliver. That's the reality. There is no other reality. This person is politically, morally, and mentally bankrupt. There is no reason whatsoever she should be reelected. If people buy into this crap that she's saying, they must be completely deranged because she hasn't delivered on any of the things that she's talking about. The only reason why an 81-year-old doesn't want to retire is to cling on to power for her and her overlords. There's no other reason. There's a gigantic generation of new Democrats that could follow in her step, even though they already shown that they were able to get corrupted and sell out in their 20s and 30s, like Ocasio-Cortez. So there's really nobody, but she should have groomed and prepped and enabled and empowered a generation to follow, whereas she's still there at 81, clinging to power like Biden, like all the other people, all these old geezers that represent everything that is dead in America, and they're still there, and they cannot get unseated.
Our vision for a world at peace requires a strong democracy at home as an example to the world. We are grateful to our men, women in uniform, veterans, and military families, and honor their sacrifice with our insistence on securing voting rights. And
What happened here? I just got distracted for a second. She touched on upon 70. So these are the key words. She's like going like, Chang, military, police, people, reformers, progressive, interest, talking. Like she's just like touching on these things as little keywords for those. Oh, she said like, rights of the military. So yeah, she's voting in Ukraine to kind of like amp up the war in Ukraine, sending military to Ukraine to die for no reason whatsoever, like she did for Afghanistan, like she did for Iraq, like she did for Libya, like she did for Syria. Thousands and thousands of American lives wasted with no results to show. Zero, 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 zero. Afghanistan, we also the great result after 20 years in Afghanistan. What we accomplished, the Taliban are there stronger than ever. So we accomplished zero. Iraq, 1 million estimated Iraqis dead, millions displaced, a country completely destroyed, invaded and destroyed by ISIS. We are about to leave. We're going to leave there too. We actually got told to get the hell out and we're refusing to leave. Results? Zero. Libya, a state that under Gaddafi was the pearl of North Africa, where everybody was given housing and a basic stipend, where all the Libyans were prospering. Gaddafi was crazy, yes. But that was the reality. Now, a failed state, the trampoline for desperate migrants that die in the sea trying to cross into Europe. Devastated country, internecine warfare between warlords. Results? Zero. Syria. Assad was there. Assad is still there. Despite all the propaganda and despite everything, Syria was the cradle of religious tolerance and coexistence. Devastated, again, subjected to the brutal invasion of ISIS. Hundreds of thousands of people dead, millions displaced, an economy destroyed. We're still blackmailing and occupying illegally the country. Results? Zero. Yemen. were backing up a genocidal massacre from the Saudis on the Yemenis for geopolitical reasons to counter Iran by massacring Yemen people. Results? Zero. Genocide. And so on and so forth. So here she is, like touting her virtues.
We are grateful to our men, women in uniform, veterans, and military families, and honor their sacrifice with our insistence on securing voting rights and end.
So this is a piece of work. So they're honoring the military and the sacrifice of these people, these soldiers that went and died for corporate wars that yielded zero results, for by securing voting rights and end the big dark money in politics. This is a woman that is financed by super PACs and private interest. Every single corrupt overlord is giving her money and is keeping her in place. And that's what she says. She's honoring the ones that died in pointless wars by securing voting rights. Let alone that in this country you're not allowed to vote if you don't register to vote, which is the denial of democracy in the first place. And then the big dark money in politics, whatever that means. It's probably the money that goes to the Republicans, because theirs is always like, the Clinton Foundation, everything. That was like clean money coming straight from Saudi Arabia.
Big dark money in politics.
Big dark.
And amplifying the voice of the grassroots.
And amplifying. So she's still honoring the fallen soldiers by securing voting rights, ending big dark money in politics, whatever it may. She's a insider trader. She's been, profiting by her legislation, by knowing in advance which companies are going up, and now she's trying to end dark money in politics and amplifying the voice of the grassroots, whatever that means, because she squelches down anything.
While we've made progress, much more needs to be done to improve people's lives. Our democracy is at risk because of assaults on the truth.
Yeah, assaults on the truth coming from you and the stooges like you. And then a lot more needs to be done. Yes, you got to get the hell out of there. That's one of the first things. You and all the other, shields and stooges need to get out of there. That's the only way that we can actually move forward. Because as long as these guys stay here, we will never go anywhere. And then there's the pitch. So in order to achieve all these incredible things and implement on the incredible things that we've already done, you need to vote Democrat, because the Republicans are evil. The Republicans assaulted the U.S. Capitol. And then the state-by-state assault on voting rights. Right. That's the problem of this country.
Assault on the U.S. Capitol and the state-by-state assault on voting rights. This election is crucial.
It's crucial. Nothing less is at stake than our democracy. If I could really play back, this has been the slogan of the Democrats since 1995. Democracy is always at stake. There's always this alternation of neo-fascists and neocons in this country. So the Republicans amp it up a notch. And then the Democrats get elected and say, whoa, we're going to reverse that. But they actually amp it up a notch from the Republicans. And then the Republicans come and amp it up a notch again. And then so on and so forth. And it's actually the same party that is actually handing the ball back and forth and enacting the agenda of the oligarchy that inevitably always gets the last word.
Is at stake than our democracy.
Yes.
But as we say, we don't agonize, we organize.
We don't agonize, we organize. Meaning you organize, you get all fired up, we snatch you up and fuck you up. That's how we don't agonize, we organize. We don't agonize, you organize, and then we screw you up. That's how it works.
And that is why I am running for re-election to Congress.
And that is why I hope that any sane person in America can watch this video and barf and realize that there's no way forward with these people. These people need to be removed from Congress. That's the only way.
Please seek your support. I would be greatly honored by it and grateful for it. Thank you so much. Hello, it's Nancy. Thank you for the
now we're gonna stop her
opportunity to
there.
share.
All right, so that was painful, but also very illuminating. It shows to me like the complete disconnect from reality that these people have because of their age, because of their privilege. Remember, these are all white people, the white super rich people that come from money and then, will go into more money, entering politics, that are ruling this nation, serving their corporate overlords, and then screwing people up, basically. And in the meantime, while they promise you things, while they promise to rule in your favor and everything, in reality, they're always ruling in favor of the oligarchy. If you look at legislations, even in what happened during the pandemic, we got crushed. Economy got devastated. Millions of people have lost their jobs. They have been on welfare until it lasted, and then they cut welfare too under Biden. So, but at the same time, billionaires became even richer. Now we're in the trillionaire range. And then the power and the money is getting more and more concentrated in lesser and lesser hands. So please open your mind. There's no Democrats or Republicans anymore. This is like, it's a us versus them fight at this point. We're all in the same boat. We have to start showing the display of power from the people by blocking anything and taking to the streets again. Americans, you have to become a little bit European right now because there's no other way out. You're not going to send anybody out there and work your way out of this situation by sending people to power. The Democrats will be destroyed in 2022, not because of voting right changes. They will be destroyed because they didn't deliver on one of the promises of their campaign. And therefore, people are struggling. People are poorer and poorer. Like inflation is at record high levels. Jobs are not being created. Everybody's struggling. Contracts are being renegotiated with lesser and lesser benefits. So the normal people, working class, is struggling terribly and will make them pay blood come 2022. The problem is that the Republicans are not the answer. But in this country that doesn't have any other options, that will be the signal. Unless people decide to do what should be done, and which is not voting at all. Creating a legislative crisis by which an executive crisis by people don't go and don't elect anybody. And then see what happens and take to the streets. I think that's the only way. Anyways, I'm gonna have much more material for you guys coming up. It seems that there's always something fun. I'm gonna try and keep it and introduce some more fun things, maybe some food and singing and music. I'm starting to write a list of guests that are gonna be here. Please subscribe to the channel where you see down there. No, I think it's down there under the late sense. There should be a little symbol when it gets posted. Subscribe button and the little bell. Choose notifications so when I go live, we can interact on the chat. I would love to hear from you. I would love to engage in a discussion. So for now, it's me talking and I'm waiting for people to log in and kind of leave a comment. So if you're around, just say hello or whatever. And let's keep it going. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. And I'll see you soon.
Your hair is glowing in the sun, your head and mind so only bound. It's bright outside and bright inside. Mid-afternoon, minister, we're free to wander anywhere. No more hatred in the stairs. Everyone's busy, minds are open, so it's just me and you. Oh, my Syrian.